take care every Thursday morning. And tonight we're going to be doing a forum for the Raytown Alderman. And there are 5 wards in Raytown. We're going to have DeMonte Rochester, Ward 1, Teresa Tush, Ward 1, Philip Conway, Ward 1. Ward 2, we will have Ryan Hoffman and Loretta Hayden. Ward 3, Ryan Myers, Morris Malloy, Latrice Thomas. Ward 4, Bill Van Brustrick. Ward 4, Josh Morales. Ward 4, Rodney Fritz. And I did not see Bonnie Mims, who's the incumbent for Ward 5. The League of Women Voters puts on these forums so that candidates can put themselves in front of the constituents and they can know a little bit about the candidates. And tonight, everybody will be given 1 minute to answer every question. So if you're in the middle of a statement, please continue that statement, but no new information. And also you will have 90 seconds as a closing. So we will start out with Ward 1, DeMonte Rochester. And Mr. Rochester, please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for League Women Voters for having this forum tonight. Thank you, Joseph Jackson, for hosting this forum tonight for us. I'm running for Raytown Alderman for a number of reasons: to continue the growth that's already started with the current Board of Aldermen, and to just be a voice for the constituents of Ward 1.
Okay. And now, Ms. Tush, could you please tell us why you're running to be a Raytown Alderwoman?
Ms. Tush hasn't signed in yet. She is doing that in process. She will join us in a little bit.
Mr. Conway, can you introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
So my name is Philip Conway. My family has been in Raytown since before Raytown was Raytown. We used to vacation in Raytown as we used to live in Independence. And I am running for alderman because my community has been overrun by dysfunctional city government and kind of having their hands tied by pockets of Jackson County that do not want to come to the light of day. And so I'm an engineer who has basically been GSA, and I'm moving into politics because that's the only way we can make some change in our communities, through action, through accountability, and not through nepotism. And that's my platform. Change through accountability.
Ward 2, Ryan Hoffman, can you introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
Thanks for having me today. My name is Ryan Hoffman. I'm running for Alderman for Ward 2. I'm kind of running so that hopefully that the people have more of a voice of what's going on here in Raytown. I feel like some of our population is just not being heard through the board, and I kind of want to bridge that gap. Thanks.
Okay, we'll continue with Ward 2. Loretta Hayden, can you tell us about yourself and why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderwoman?
Okay, my name is Loretha Hayden. That's okay. Loretta was my mom, so that's quite all right. I am the current alderman in Ward 2, and I am running again because I think that we have momentum with the current board. I would like to see us continue some of the things that we've started, and I happen to love Raytown. I have both my business in Raytown, I live in Raytown, and I'm a part of this community with the school district and other forums that I'm on. So I would just like to continue that momentum.
Okay, we'll now go to Ward 3. Mr. Ryan Myers, can you introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
Of course. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Myers, and I have the honor of serving as your current alderman for Ward 3 in Raytown. As a commercial real estate appraiser, I bring a unique perspective to city leadership. I understand how infrastructure investment, public safety, and financial management affect property value, business growth, and quality of life. Over the past 4 years, Raytown has increased police funding by over 11%, invested more than $4 million in infrastructure, and strengthened our financial position in terms of our general fund. These are real, tangible indicators of progress, and Raytown is moving forward, but we must keep the momentum going. I'm running for re-election to ensure that we continue to make smart, strategic investments that support our residents, businesses, and future development. And together we can build a Raytown that is safe, prosperous, and welcoming for all.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Next, Mr. Morris Malloy. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
Yes, my name is Morris Malloy. I've been a resident for about 5 years, been involved with this community for about 20, having served on the Raytown Soccer Club, encouraged them to get involved with shared play. The main reason that I filed for candidacy is an ordinance at 5348 Blue Ridge Boulevard, where the current leadership of this city wanted to have yet another convenience, as they called it, liquor store. Destroy a neighborhood, destroy the entrance to Raytown, and completely ignored over 300 residents that stood up and testified against this. 2 testified for it. If it was 300 residents, 298 testified against it. And my aldermen, both of them, completely ignored us. And that's why I filed for candidate, because we need change.
Thank
and
you,
we
Mr.
don't need that change.
Thank you, Mr. Malloy. Ward 3, Ms. Latrice Thomas, can you introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderwoman?
Thank you for hosting this forum, legal women voters, and also thank you as well for hosting Mr. Jackson. My name is Latrice Thomas. I am running for Ward 3 Alderwoman. The reason I am running is because I would love to see a much needed change in the city. I believe that we need leaders who believe that the city can be revised. And who is willing to work with the residents, as well as advocating for them, hearing them out, being transparent with them, keeping them in the know of what's going on, and just ultimately giving them the leadership that they deserve. So that is why I decided to file for candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I go to Ward 4, Mr. Bill Van Brustrick. Can you tell us why you want to run to be a Raytown Alderman and introduce a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, thank you for allowing me to participate in this forum. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all those who are participating. I've been a resident of Raytown since 1970 and had ties to the city well before that, certainly. But my wife and I raised our family here. They were in the schools here. We've been a part of the community in numerous ways for many, many years. I have you asked me the reason I want to run. I want to continue to serve. That's my reason for being here. It's a reason I have served for 16 years now. And I've been through numerous administrations, through a lot of different people on the board. I think we have a great board now, and we have we've been doing some great things, and I think I want to see that continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Continue with Ward 4, Mr. Josh Morales. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come and be on this. I'm the father of 2 daughters, and this organization is something that I think it does a good job empowering young women, and of course we have other people on the call as well. I have a background in a former career as an executive director, and my job was to go into areas and identify I was called their fixer. And so my job was to identify the root causes of the things that were causing us to not perform. And also I'm involved in the chambers of commerce and the Rotary clubs and the Main Street Association. And so my goal is to work not only with the city, but all of these organizations and bring them together so that we can fulfill the long range plan that we've been working so hard.
Thank you so much, Mr. Morales. Continue with Ward 4, Mr. Rodney Fritz. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderman?
Sure. Hey, I'd like to first of all thank the Women's League of Voters in Raytown for giving me this opportunity. Well, my background is I'm married. We got 6 kids, blended family. If you didn't know, I'm the father, stepson of the Olympic gold medalist Quincy Hall from Raytown South. So we represented Raytown South very well over in Paris, France, when he won the gold medal in the Olympics. And another Maurice Mitchell was another Raytown South alum that he made it to the Olympics, but he didn't medal. But I was fortunate enough to have him for 6 years also. We got 6 kids, 6 grandchildren, and I have a master's in business administration. I have a degree in political science and also another degree in psychology. So I want to try to move Raytown to the next level. What I'm hearing I'm campaigning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right. So we're going to go to question number 2.
Hold on, Mr. Jackson. Teresa Tush has joined. She's, I believe, in Ward 1 and did not get to introduce herself.
Correct.
Yes. Ms. Tush, are you here?
I think so.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve as a Raytown Alderwoman?
My name is Teresa Tush. I've lived in Raytown since 2000. I am trying to figure out how I can help make the change for the better in areas that are not. I don't know.
Is that it, ma'am? Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. So question number 2, we're going to start with Ward number 2, Ryan Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman, can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas you have to solve it or work with it?
One issue facing Raytown. One that we've been working on, one that we've tried in the past to get taken care of is our infrastructure, our roads. At that one point in time, we tried passing bonds to get these roads taken care of so we can get caught up. There was some opposition to these bonds, and that's where things kind of got off track. The people that were opposed to it, no one was talking to them. There was no mediation, I guess. And so we ended up short in the vote, and we ended up with nothing instead of having to work together. And that's my whole point of being here, is that hopefully we can work together on some things to make progress.
Thank you, sir. Continue with Ward number 2. Ms. Hayden, can you give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
Well, along with the infrastructure, and that was one of the platforms that I've run on for some time. We did have a failed bond issue for street improvements. However, I think that we did a good job with passing the other bond for part of our infrastructure and sewer. And you have seen that some of that work is being done. But above all that is the public safety issue. The police department is being properly staffed. We have some, I think they said 13 officers that have been sworn on here recently. So I think we're getting back to the point where we're going to have safer streets and more police funding for our police officers. So those are my 2 biggest things.
Thank you, Ms. Hayden. Ward 3, Mr. Ryan Myers, can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown? What ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
I think we're going to see a little bit of overlap tonight, but if I had to pick one thing, the one thing that sticks out to me as someone who is a proponent of the general obligation bonds throughout their life here in the city of Raytown, it's dealing with infrastructure maintenance and improvement. Our roads, sidewalks, and stormwater systems are aging, and rising construction costs make repairs more difficult. Again, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser. I know that infrastructure directly impacts property values and business investment. And just some ways to address this: we need to maximize our existing funds. We've invested over $4 million in capital improvements and secured a sewer bond to help that infrastructure. It's going to be tough, but if we can continue to pursue state and federal grants to help alleviate some of the offset of some of the costs, partner with business and developers to fund improvements through public-private initiatives, and improve transparency, ensuring tax dollars are used effectively and residents stay informed.
Thank you, Mr. Continue with Ward 3. Mr. Malloy, can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what suggestions or ideas you would have to deal with it?
I think it has to do with public involvement and the fact that there's not a lot of transparency within the current board on getting people involved versus allowing certain individuals to shut them down. We've had multiple times where the Board of Aldermen have had ordinances presented and they chose to ignore their rules and push them through without any public comment whatsoever. So residents get a notice on Friday of what's happening on Tuesday, and on Tuesday they change our lives forever. That needs to change, and that comes with transparency and public involvement, and our residents need to have a voice, not be discouraged as they've been over the last 3 years that I've been actively involved.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, can you tell us one issue facing Raytown and what ideas and suggestions you would have to deal with it?
I would have to definitely say public safety. That is one issue that I hear a lot of constituents that they're always making sure that they let me know they don't feel safe. What issue would what way that I would resolve that or offer suggestions on that is basically give them the reassurance, let them know that what the authorities are doing for them. They just don't know. And so you hear back and forth, you'll hear from the current aldermen, they will pretty much, ensure that they're being proactive and they're doing what they need to do, but they're just not convinced because they see too much crime. And they're like, okay, well, this doesn't look like this is happening because no one came and I'm not getting any results. And the problem is still there. So definitely just ensure them that they're being safe and that things are being taken care of for them and measures are in place. Thank you.
Ward 4, Mr. Bill Van Brusk, can you give us an example of one issue that you see facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
Okay, could you give me the question again, please?
Sure. Can you give one example of one issue facing Raytown and what suggestions or ideas you would have to deal with it?
Well, there's a lot of issues facing us, certainly. Part of that is just funding for a lot of the things that we need and living within our means. The highest priority for me is public safety. And I used to serve on the Raytown Police Department, and it was an honor. We're in a situation now where it's difficult to find good qualified police officers. There's a big demand for them and all over. But we've been doing a good job of that and training new ones. We just swore in 12 just recently. And certainly we provided the funds that the police officers and the police department needs. We have a great chief of police. We changed that from an elected position to an appointed position a few years ago. It's been really good for us, and I think he's doing a great job. So
Thank you, sir.
I could talk about a number of things. Thank you.
Ward number 4, Mr. Josh Morales, can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
So as I've been knocking on doors, and I have a survey, safety has been the number one thing that people talk about, but and that's extremely important. Okay, we need our residents and our businesses to feel safe, but I believe that's a reactive issue. What I think is missing in our town is a sense of identity and a reputation problem, because when you see on social media and in the news and the people that talk about us, even local residents, it's a negative it's a negative conversation that they're having, and that is because of our problems with infrastructure and crime and those kind of things. Whereas our community is uniquely positioned to be one that is ideal for young families that want to come in, businesses that want to start and grow. Funding is a big issue by not only bonds and things like that, but utilizing our civic organizations to write grants and bring them together. We can bring in funding from external sources to solve these problems and define our identity.
Thank you, sir. Continue with Ward 4, Mr. Rodney Fitz. Can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
I'm a tailgate with a lot of other folks. Public safety is my key point. And when I was campaigning over in Jessica Estates, the elderly folks feel like they've been left out. So we got to make sure and put in a plan, proactive plan to make sure, find out what we need and how we can get the funds or the means to have more police officers, because I'm a big stickler for law and order.
Thank you, sir. Ward number 1, Mr. DeMonte Rochester. Can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions you would have to deal with it?
I guess I'm gonna overlap here as well. Public safety and basic city services are my tool. And the way we combat that is continue to work with the current board. We didn't came a long way. Do we got much room to go? Yes. We're not quite where we want to be yet, but we have come a long way to where we were, and we're on the right path. So continue to work with the current board and get to where we need to go, and we're gonna get there.
Thank you, Mr. Rochester. Ms. Tush, can you please give an example of one issue facing Raytown and what ideas or suggestions that you would have to deal with it?
As I've been walking neighborhoods, most of ours is city codes, lots that haven't been taken care of, safety issues. We have been trying to, the lack of response from the police, the safety issues, not being able to have anybody come out because they're booked up, but yet, when we have crimes happening in our area, then, we need to have more of an area of people being proactive and street lights and different codes and stuff like that.
Thank you, ma'am. And last, Mr. Conway, can you please give us an example of one issue facing Raytown and what suggestions or ideas you would have to deal with it?
So COVID has basically disenfranchised basically everybody that was born 3 years before and 3 years after. Historically within Raytown, we had the Bridge Club. Every 2 weeks, all the women from the different churches would build the bridge. We've lost the bridge. My whole platform is, I come from an engineering background. I'm an architectural engineer. I'm a retired GSA inspector, so I've seen things that we don't even know about. And we need a unified government. Blue Springs is the best place in Missouri to be because they have unified government. Water One has just taken control of the Raytown Water Department. We have the gateway to become unified. That's the issue. Accountability through unification.
Thank you, sir. So we're going to start with Ward number 3, Mr. Ryan Myers. Can you tell us of some problems facing your ward that you're running for, Ward number 3?
I'm going to tag along and say that overall, public safety, again, another repetitive topic, but that's one of the main issues throughout the entire, not only Raytown, but the entire metro area. You know, crime, property crime, violent crime, it's an issue metro-wide. You know, a well-funded police department enhances community safety and directly influencing property values, business investment, and neighborhood stability. So really, the safer a city is, the more homeowners and businesses it's going to attract. And that's in my ward as well as the other 4 wards within Raytown. So I just want to make sure that we reinforce our public safety, which is going to also reinforce our long-term economic health within the community.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mr. Malloy, can you please tell us again one issue facing Ward number 3 that you're running to represent?
It would have been nice to have had.
I kind of find it interesting that people are jumping on this public safety bandwagon. I started about 4 months ago going to the Board of Aldermen meetings, and in the limited 5 minutes that we had, presenting what our community was sharing in multiple forums, mostly social media, about how bad our public safety was and how much people wanted to have more police involvement. One of the biggest comments that people made was that joy over a police officer issuing a ticket in a school zone. So that's the #1 issue, but I started that 4 months ago when I was at the Board of Aldermen dealing with it. But the primary issue that we want that with is to have us involved. And our current aldermen don't let us get involved. They don't respond to emails, phone calls.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, can you tell us one issue that is facing Ward 3 that you're running to represent?
There are many issues, but one of the major ones that I always hear is that they feel like that they're not being heard. So that is pretty much, that's it, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ward number 4, Mr. Bill Van Brusick, can you tell us one issue that's facing Ward number 4 that you're running to represent?
Well, I think all of the wards facing basically the same types of issues, everyone in the city. Our ward specifically has a lot of business and business opportunities, areas for growth. I'm a big proponent of economic growth in our city, the right kind certainly, but as we attract new people into our city, we need to clean our city up, and I've been an advocate of that for years. I think that's a big issue. Although we have a person heading up that department now who's doing a fantastic job, and she just gave us a presentation at the last city council meeting that was very impressive as to what she's doing to clean up the city and make it a better place, a community where young families want to come here, where businesses want to come here. And I'll let it go at that then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Morales, can you tell us one problem, in your opinion, is facing Ward 4 that you're running to represent?
Sure. So I think Bill's right. There are common issues across the whole city, and everybody's talked about them, from crime, of course, and potholes and street lights and sidewalks and things like that. But I believe your question is something that's very specific to Ward 4. And when I'm walking around, a very specific issue to Ward 4 has been citizens that are talking about Spire tearing up the road in a specific area and doing a poor job of repairing the road. Also, there's a big site out there where they've been parking vehicles for a while and not communicating well with residents. Again, they've reached out to some of city leadership, and they're having difficulties getting responses to that. Also, there's a big tree on 78th Street and 350 Highway that blocks traffic. And I keep a notebook of everybody that I've been talking to. So crime, sidewalks, infrastructure, yes, but those are the specific ones that I found.
Thank you, sir. Continue with ward number 4. Mr. Fritz, can you tell us one problem that you see that, or you've been told that faces impacts ward number 4 that you're running to represent?
The elderly folks, and that's all of them, not just including Jessica Estates. A lot of them feel like they're not being heard, and there's really not many activities that they say they can do or whatever. I think we need to be more accessible, attainable to their needs, and figure out something and get a game plan where they can feel safe, because actually they're going to retire here. This is probably the last place they're moving or moved. So we want to make this their glory days. We want to make these happy days of, we need to do something, put a plan together, a plan of action, an action plan to make sure they feel like they're welcomed and they're not thrown to the wayside.
Thank you, sir. Ward number 1, Mr. DeMonte Rochester, what are some problems that you see that are facing Ward 1 that you're running to represent?
You're mute.
You're muted.
I think it's been said across the board that we all facing the same issues in each ward, public safety. But in order for us to improve public safety, we on the right track. We are already employing 12 new police officers that should hopefully evaluate some of the problems we have with public safety, and then that can entice us to have better economic development. Another issue I feel like we have in Ward 1 is the amount of trash services that we have in Ward 1 that I don't know, that's something the city can't put a cap on, but if we can put a cap on the amount of trash services to limit the amount of trash companies that we have in Ward 1, that would be awesome. I hear that every day. Like, we have a multimate amount of trash companies that pick up our trash each day, and we can cap that to like 1 or 2. I think we'd be doing great.
Thank you, Mr. Rochester. Ms. Tush, can you tell us some problems that you see that are for Ward 1 that you're running to represent?
Some of the people that I have talked to, their main concern is the structure, the code violations, the safety. Police are not responding as far as they can. The lights aren't doing very good. Also, the expired tags on cars that are on the street and have been expired for years, and nobody has ever expired any of them, done anything about them. It's just, I don't know what else to do. I mean, if we don't address the expired tags, that's money out of our pocket. The city doesn't get anything because, well, most of the time they have expired.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's a city.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Conway, what are some problems you're running to represent Ward 1? What are some problems that you see for those who live in Ward 1?
Well, the residents I've talked about feel exploited by the municipal government, and the fact that we're trying to raise revenue by putting the residents that are actually responsive into the ticket ward versus doing simple things like, I don't know, making some speed bumps so that people aren't racing through our neighborhoods, giving the kids something to do when they wait for the bus, something that's safe for the whole community, not just the senior citizens, because they've done their time. They need to get out and be involved in our community. Because I mean, in the 80s and 90s, my grandmother was vividly involved in all of the historic preservation that was done in Raytown. We have some of the most historic sites, but nobody wants to maintain them. So my whole deal is history through progress. You got to know where you're coming from before you can move forward. Period.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ward number 2, Mr. Ryan Hoffman. Can you give us an example of some of the problems that are facing Ward number 2 that you're running to represent?
Some of the problems facing Ward 2 is one of them being empty, vacant buildings, businesses, both commercial and residential. Our community development department has done a good job this past year helping some people out and getting some buildings filled. I think if we can expand on that and get more businesses in, get more vacant buildings taken care of and filled up, that's going to benefit Raytown just all the way around. So that's the one thing. Other than that, infrastructure and public safety, those are the things people are talking about right now.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hayden, can you tell us, you're running to represent Ward 2. Can you tell us some of the problems that you see that are facing residents who live in Ward number 2?
Well, in addition to infrastructure and public safety, and by public safety, I mean a decrease in crime, not necessarily writing tickets. I think that it's important that we look at the upkeep of our homes and the litter that is around our community, our whole entire community, not just Ward 2. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of our senior citizens are trying to keep the house. And so we need to stretch out a hand to help that demographic of people because they can't get out and climb roofs and clear leaves and mow the lawn and that type of thing. So I think that is really important that we try to figure out a way. And we do have a home improvement program that we are working on to try to help with some of that. But I think that we need to do more, and maybe neighbors helping neighbors, something like that we need to continue to work on.
Thank you so much. So the next question, we're going to go back to Ward 1, Mr. DeMonte Rochester. Public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
Good question. I believe that we can find means of ways within the city budget to work with KCTA and other means of people with transportation so that we can solve this problem. I know that we just stopped our funding for KCTA because it was getting too expensive. So now that we can find alternative ways to maybe work with KCTA so that we continue to get our folks to work and to school or wherever they need to go.
Thank you, Mr. Rochester. Ms. Tush, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
I think that if we can figure out what the needs are on the residents and try and work on maybe like a single bus instead of like Ubering and stuff like that, I think we would be able to Aetna is part of some of for the low income and things like that.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget? Mr. Conway? Mr. Conway? I think we may have lost one, Cindy.
He's muted.
Okay, he's muted. Mr. Conway, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Mr. Conway. Well, I'll go ahead and, since we can't get him to unmute himself, I'll go to Ward number 2, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
Yeah, that's a very good question these days. There's a lot of things with KCATA that are kind of up in the air right now as far as what services they'll actually have to offer here in the future. Yeah, one of the main things to look at is other rideshare programs we may have to go with, see what's available out there, see what our needs are, and just kind of go from there. Because yeah, dealing with KCATA, it's a big question. It's a good question.
Thank you. Ms. Hayden, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
I think we continue to work with KCATA, and we do have a current service. I can't think of the name of the ride share program,
Iris.
but basically,
ISIS.
what was it?
Iris.
Yes. What they do is basically just call the line, and they come within a quarter of a mile of your pickup drop, and that you call them, you tell them what time they are. So I think we continue with those kind of programs to assist our folks so that they can get into to work and home from work safely and soundly and timely.
Okay, Ward 3, Mr. Ryan Myers, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
So public transportation is essential for many of Raytown's residents, whether it's getting to work, running errands, or accessing healthcare. A lot of our residents are older, so they're going to the doctor, going to the hospital, et cetera. But we also have to balance improvements with fiscal responsibility. We're fortunate to partner with KCATA, which operates key routes through Raytown. One way we can improve service is by working closely with KCATA to optimize routes based on ridership data, making sure buses are going where people need them most and at the times that they need. Raytown is also part of the Iris on Demand, like Laretha talked about, which has been a great flexible option for our residents, which don't live near a fixed route. Expanding awareness and access to Iris, especially for seniors and people with mobility challenges, can help fill those gaps traditional bus services can't reach. By strengthening partnerships with KCATA, promoting Iris, and some of these other things that I've touched on, and making smart, targeted upgrades, I think that we can expand access to transportation while keeping costs manageable.
Thank you. Continuing with Ward number 3, Mr. Malloy, public transportation is vital for Raytown for residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
I think a lot of that has to do with involving the community. If I'm going to Hy-Vee or to Price Chopper or to one of the businesses in Raytown or to where I work up north, we have a community page and group that can talk about, hey, I got room in my car, it's just me. I'm taking my dog to work, obviously. But maybe we get the community involved instead of relying on, we don't have the residents or the funds to properly deal with the needs of everyone who has transportation issues. We've been relying on KCTA for years. We will always be relying on it because of the size of our community. So let's get the community involved and say, hey, I'm going down to Westport. You want to go? I'm going to the Royals game. You want to go? I'll give you a ride.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
I ultimately agree with a few other candidates and also current leaders. I would agree to partner or collaborate with some other options for us to be able to continue the services that we have, or if we need to implement other options so that we can have people that don't have that access to transportation, that need to get to some of the important errands or places or wherever they need to go. So I would agree with also looking at just the other options, collaborating with different organizations as well.
Thank you. Ward number 4, Mr. Fritz, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tailgate on what a lot of the other candidates said. I was thinking they said Iris on Demand, but I was thinking group shuttles, because I know KCATA, they just they had a $32 million shortfall, and they might get 20 million from the county. And so they was looking at probably have to lay people off. So I was thinking if we can collaborate or something like that. And it's about the need and the numbers and where do you pick, if we're talking about a 15 passenger van or something like that, where do you pick these people up? What's the stops? What's the popular? How far do you go? You know, all that has to be in the numbers of, and the data without me looking at it personally or gathering the actual numbers. I'm a numbers guy. So without me seeing it, but that's the best I can do off the top of my head. Group collaboration on shuttles or Iris on demand. And I know we won't go over budget.
Thank you. Mr. Morales, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to get to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
So I believe everybody's already offered a lot of great ideas, and we already are implementing some great ideas on how to get people from place to place. But I'm not hearing anybody focus on the phrase stay within budget. Okay. So one of the it seems to me that we limit ourselves to trying to raise taxes or issue bonds or float bond, get bonds to pay for things. But what we don't do well is engage our partnering organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, the Main Street Associations, the Rotary Clubs, and even the city itself. Through the long range plan process, we tasked that group, the Lakota group, with helping us identify grant opportunities. All of these organizations have the ability to bring in money from outside sources, and that could be used either to fund transportation or fund other things that then we could use that money to offset the cost.
Thank you. Ward number 4, Mr. Bill Van Brusk, can you tell us, Raytown, public transportation is vital for Raytown residents to work, shopping, and home. How can public transportation be improved while staying within budget?
Well, this has changed over the years. We have been providing transportation through KCATA for many years. The cost went up to where it was just out of reach for us money-wise. And certainly what we are providing is all of the citizens of the city are providing transportation for a few, but I think that's important. And we've been able to do that. We just changed through KCATA through to another, I think a couple of the aldermen related to that, to another program. And it seems to be very successful. It's costing us a lot less. It's a lot better for those that are utilizing it. And we've got some tremendous feedback from it. But this is something we face every year. And if you're familiar with the city budgets and the things we face, you would probably be more familiar with. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Next question, we'll start with Ward number 2. Mr.
Sorry,
Ryan Hoffman.
I can give an answer now. I got off mute.
Okay, Mr. Conway, go ahead.
So I think that we need to do some partnerships with our kids and do bus stops that look like something other than just a shack. Because when I grew up, there were bus stops everywhere so you could get shelter, have a spot on Blue Ridge that you weren't getting ran over by some truck in the middle of the night. We need to have something that gives us purpose, that's designed well so that people want to use the bus, not just the people that are disenfranchised. Why isn't everybody using the bus? I mean, if you look around Raytown, everybody's driving by themselves, and then they want to gripe about transportation and roads. They're using too much roads. There's too little people in their car. That's just a sustainable output. So we can't, it's like, what is it? What did Grandpa say? If you put poop in, you get poop out. You got to control the whole process, not just look at the 2% that need the bus. Why isn't the 80% that could use the bus not using it? Why? Because they would save money. They just don't want to. They just don't want to. That's it.
Next question, Ward number 2, Mr. Ron Hoffman. There is a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
That's a topic that's been going round and round, especially with when the price of eggs went up and all of that. Chickens, I don't have any. I'd have to look more into it. I hear plenty around the neighborhood. Yeah, it's something that's went round and round. But a lot of people didn't want to live on a farm and they don't like hearing all that noise. So, there's a lot to check into on it, and I'd have to learn more about it before I made too many comments.
Ms. Hayden, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
And I'm assuming that we're talking about within the city of Raytown.
Correct.
So I think that we have to be aware and be fair to neighbors all around. If people wanted to live out in the country with chickens and cows and pigs and that type of thing, they probably would not be within Raytown. However, if it was a big enough lot where it does not impede on the neighbor's property, gives them plenty of space, that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you would have to have the land and the property so we do not offend our neighbors.
Thank you. Ward number 3, Ms. Thomas, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
I have to totally agree with Mr. Hoffman. I do not own chickens. It would be I have seen that question kind of roaming around. I can't really totally answer. I do love what Miss Laretha said. We have to be aware and fair. So I would definitely have to look more into that to be able to give a true response on what I could do. Thank you.
Mr. Malloy, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
I'm in favor of exploring it. I don't think chickens are necessarily loud, but I don't know about what your question means on other animals, because I had to report 2 homes that are adjacent to me. One had 10 dogs. And when codes got there, they only were able to find 3, which isn't allowed. But I don't want a neighbor having 10 dogs. They're a heck of a lot louder than the 20 chickens that my friend has in a rural area that were cooped and everything. We never even heard those chickens. We're not talking about roosters. We're talking about chickens. So I don't know what the limit is. I don't know what the concern is. I keep hearing it, but it's not been explained as to what the problem is. But certainly with other animals, no, we need to egg prices. Yeah, let's have a chicken or 2, but other animals, I need to know what the concern is. So.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Myers, there is a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
Okay, this is a fun one, Joseph. I believe in a balanced approach, especially for like chickens. Need to be careful with other animals like goats. We've had that conversation at the Board of Aldermen level a couple of years ago, and really you have to take into consideration, while eggs are great, but you also have to consider the size of your lot, the noise, the odor, and the overall impact to the neighborhood. Things like goats, it's been put out that by university workers and researchers that droppings from goats can cause a health concern for the human population. Excuse me. I think it's an issue where public input is going to be critical. Any changes that should come with they should come with clear guidelines on cleanliness, enclosures, and enforcement. And I'm open to loosening restrictions, but in a responsible way, and it has to be done with respect for both property rights and community.
Thank you. Ward number 4, Mr. Van Brustick, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
Thank you for the question. As Mr. Myers related to, this is something that we have discussed and on more than one occasion, and we've changed the ordinance related to that over the years as necessary. The percentage of people that actually want chickens and those kind of animals in the city is relatively low. But there is provision for that, and we do have an ordinance that provides for that. If they have enough space provided and it's not going to interfere with their neighbors, and certainly there's, restrictions related to that. But that ordinance is in effect, and if anyone would like to go see what's in the ordinance, they're welcome to do that anytime. So there's a provision for that already. I was raised in an area where we had about an acre of ground, though, in a little town where I grew up, but we had a horse and cows and some chickens and things, but I don't have any now. Thank you.
Mr. Fritz, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
Well, it all depends. Again, it all depends on the neighbors, the cleanliness. I'm open-minded, but at the end of the day, it's all about, what the neighbors and what the people really want. So that's the best way I can answer that. For chickens in my backyard, that's going to be probably a no. But it's all about my neighbors. It's about having them comfortable and relaxed on what the situation is. And I would have to be also comfortable and relaxed on that situation.
Thank you. Ward number 1, Ms. Tush, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals? Ms. Tush? You're muted, Ms. Tush.
Sorry about that. I think it all depends on how big their property is and how close they are to other residents. I know some farmers in other counties, if they want like a pig farm or anything like that, they have to get permission by their surrounding neighbors because of the smell. But I think as long as we do the controlling of the smell and the noise and everything like that, I think that would be okay with what we have. I don't think that we need to include anything else at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
I would make sure that everyone is permitted through Jackson County so that if we have a bird flu vector that comes through that's getting into our cats, we can quickly cull those chickens as a problem. Because if you watch the news, we've culled about 3.1 million chickens per month. You know why that's happening? The bird flu. It's getting into the cats. It's a safety thing. So if they have a permit through Jackson County, we can do an epidemiological trace on them. Great. But if I come through and they're just got a bunch of chickens around, they're going to get cold. It's a public safety thing. We don't need influenza coming through our cats, killing our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Rochester, there's a restriction on the number of chickens and other animals a resident in Raytown can have. Would you be in favor of easing the ordinance for chickens and other animals?
I'm gonna go with what's already been said by my current elected officials. As long as we do this responsibly and we do it taking the right approach, I will loosen the restriction.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Hoffman, how do you recommend the Raytown residents stay involved and engage with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
Say that one more time.
How do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engage with City Hall to learn about ordinance changes and zoning changes?
Boy, yeah, that's one of the reasons that I decided to run is the lack of people that actually come to the board that don't seem to be heard from the board. So as far as what people need to do or can do, I'd say show up at more meetings, the Board of Aldermen meetings. I know a lot of times I attend quite a few of them. I'll be sitting out in the audience and there's very few people there. There's a lot of empty chairs. I think as more people get more involved and watch more of what is going on, then the more they'll learn, the more they'll understand, and the more they'll come to help out what's going on in Raytown.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hayden, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
I think the best way to do that is to attend not only the Board of Aldermen meetings, but the planning and zoning meetings. They're open to the public. If you can't be there on that particular day, you can look at it live, or they are pre-recorded and you can go back and review it. I did that for many years before I became an alderman. So if you really want to be involved and really want to know about these ordinance changes, then attend the planning and zoning meetings and the Board of Aldermen meetings. And if you can be in attendance, try the live stream. And if that's not a possibility, go back and review the recordings. They're all pre-recorded.
Mr. Myers, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
You know, that's a tough one. That's something that we've struggled with historically, with Raytown not having a paper. It's difficult to get information and data out to our residents. Then again, what's the phrase? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So as elected officials, we try to get the word out there as much as we can using social media, engaging with our constituents and other methods. But really, the city's website is a great jumping off point, and we recently kind of renovated the city's website to make it more user-friendly. And we have a PIO that does a great job, and she helps to get information about what's going on in the city, whether it's ordinances, Board of Aldermen meetings. After every meeting, we do in case you missed it on the city's Facebook page, just to give a brief overview of what we talked about. So we're making great steps, but there's always room for improvement.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
I recommend for the residents to truly understand the importance of what the local government do. I do agree with Mr. Myers when he said you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I agree. I believe that it does have to be something that you want to know. I believe that you have to have some level of care and concern about what's going on in your community. I agree as well. Use all of your media options. Also, you have the website, you have the replays. Attend the meetings, all meetings. If there's anything that just simply reach out. Just simply ask your leader. I would just say make the attempt to do whatever you need to do to get the response or get the information.
Mr. Malloy, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
Well, the way the question's phrased is how do I recommend to residents is not necessarily how our current leadership allows us to be involved. The residents need to attend the meetings. They need to make comments. They need to submit written testimony if necessary if they can't attend the meeting. But they need to be their voice heard. That's how you recommend they do it. How you get the leadership to hear it is a different issue. And Another thing that needs to happen is when it comes to the zoning issues, the ordinance needs to be expanded on the number of residents that need to be notified, because currently it's 500 feet. Well, if I wanted to do something zoning on my property, it's 180 feet to the street. So that only means that I cover the next door neighbor. The person next to them would never get notified of the change. So we need to do some work in that regard, and we need to listen to our residents and encourage them to be involved instead of disencourage.
Thank you, sir. Ward number 4, Mr. Morales. How do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
Yeah, so first of all, I got skipped on the chicken question,
I'm sorry.
but I don't know that I have more to add on that one because I really agreed with Laretha. Regarding public engagement, I think that there is a confusion with everyday citizens regarding the political climate in our country. Okay, so our political climate as a country is off-putting, and so people try to avoid it, and they think that local politics is just another continuation of the divisiveness that we see at the national level. So every day or every other day or so, I've been posting videos on my Josh for the Future page about what the topics that are coming up, and my plan would be to continue that. So I think we need a more proactive approach as city council and as aldermen, so that we're changing the conversation and bringing attention to the local issues, and that increases engagement from that direction, and then we can promote the things that are being put out there publicly.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fritz, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
I would encourage them to attend meetings, and basically, I want to say that people that are already in the political world of Raytown, I would try to say they need to start a mentoring program for the younger folks, because some of these younger folks feel they don't have a voice, that they feel they're not being heard also, on the political aspect of things, not just needs, because they can handle their own needs, but far as a political process, they need to learn that stuff, because a lot of us we're not getting any younger. Each second we're getting older. So I think that's a great idea to have a mentoring ship as far as an alderman, and make sure community is involved. That way you show transparency. It's nothing to hide.
Thank you. Mr. Van Brustic, can you tell us, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
Okay, first of all, I think we are very transparent, and we do have opportunities for people to speak at our meetings. And there are other options they have to contact us. I get contacted by constituents all the time. Something I did myself, I was very involved with the community from the time I moved here in a number of different ways. And I did attend city council meetings, and was very active in many other ways with organizations within our community. I think some of it just has to do with if people are really that interested, because unfortunately, a lot of people are not that interested. So you have to have an interest in it before you want to participate and be a part of it. Those meetings are always open to people if they want to come and participate. They want to be a part of it, and I wish more people would. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward number 1, Mr. Rochester, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
I believe we already do a great deal of getting the word out as far as meetings, notices, Facebook, emails, phone calls. But I'm gonna go a little bit further. I want to continue what Alderwoman Hayden and Alderwoman Bonnie May Mims does, is have town hall meetings. That way you can connect with your constituents and on a greater sense, and bring awareness to different issues that's going on, not only in your ward, but through the whole city. So I believe town halls is another great avenue that we can do, like Alderwoman Hayden and Alderman Mills does a great job of. Even Ryan Myers has town halls to get awareness out. So these are the ways that we get the word out about different things that's going on in City Hall.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
So I spent the early part of my career in Denver, which is a very communal-based deal. And they had what they call reverse town halls, where the municipal judge and the aldermen were accountable for what they just passed. And the citizens asked questions. And so the next time they did it, they knew what they were getting into. It wasn't a closed door thing. They were accountable to the public so that they had to answer the questions, because our judge has been on the bench for 20 years. Our clerk doesn't even show up. How are we supposed to get things done? So I want those people that are making the decisions to tell us why they're doing it. Why? That's it. Reverse town hall.
Ms. Tush, how do you recommend Raytown residents stay involved and engaged with City Hall to learn about ordinance and zoning changes?
I think trying to get the word out more. I've lived in Raytown 20 plus years, and if it wasn't for my husband, I probably wouldn't know a lot of what was going on, because with my work and raising families, I just really don't have the time. And unless somebody lets me know, as a member of society, of the city, of what might be impacting us, I wouldn't know anything. I think trying to be more proactive and trying to get the newsletter out to the citizens and make it towards more accessible for people, especially our older and low income families that don't have access to the internet and things like that.
So we're going to start with Ward number 4 this time. Mr. Morales. Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and the IHOP on 350, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
So vacant lots is a problem in general, not just with businesses, but with houses. We've done a lot of work in the past with tax incentives, but they tend to be offered to the larger corporations and the larger companies that come through here, whereas we want to promote more locally owned businesses. That tends to bring in more revenue into the city, and the businesses themselves are more directly tied to what's going on in the local community. So tax incentives are a big part of it, but also improving the community. When we talk about crime, we talk about the trash and things like that. We need a city that can sustain the businesses when they're here. So it's not just about filling up a vacant business with a vacant building with a business. It's creating a community by raising the tide for everybody, so that we are building a community that can sustain those.
Thank you. Mr. Van Brunswick. Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and then the IHOP on 350, to name a few. What ideas or suggestions would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
Unfortunately, many times we go 2 steps forward and 1 back. I feel like we are gaining. A lot of things have changed in Raytown over the years. It was some areas of Raytown that was very vibrant back when I first moved here, or not now. But I think we're bringing new businesses into the community. We are bringing new residents into the community, and there's certainly a lot of opportunities for growth there. We do have an economic development director in the city who is responsible for trying to bring new businesses in. And We do have the Raytown Municipal Redevelopment Corporation, which I sit on that board, to give some of these businesses that have been there for a long time, or some of these areas where they're vacant buildings, both, to give them tax incentives to try to revitalize those areas. And that's something I've been involved in for many years.
Thank you. Mr. Fritz, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, Applebee's on 350, and IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
Well, first we got to get on the public safety, and we got to detour crime and enforce the laws as it adheres to the book. And because once you do that, then everybody will feel safe and they wouldn't mind bringing their businesses here, whether it be mom and pops or big business, because I sure would like to get Academy Sports here. I mean, it's an excellent spot. We could do the same thing that Liberty is doing. Liberty just has 1,000 more people than we have. We lost 1,000 folks. When I first moved to Raytown, it was 30,000 plus. Now we're down to 29,000. So I think we can probably put a plan together, but you got to take care of the bad stuff, the unfortunate stuff first, clean that up, and then you can bring in clean in, clean out, clean up, clean in, clean out.
Thank you. Mr. Rochester, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and the IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
I believe the city's new comprehensive plan will address some of these concerns and issues, and then to work with the current leadership to ensure that we're continue to bring in growth and more economic development.
Thank you. Ms. Tush, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and the IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to bring increased economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
I'm all about bringing more jobs and businesses to Raytown. I applaud it. I look forward to it. But right now we have an influx of crime and instability, which needs to be addressed. And that's what is holding some of the businesses back from moving to Raytown.
Thank you. Mr. Conway, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
Eminent domain. Take their buildings if they leave them here and all of their stuff and start suing them through Jackson County so we can stop being victims and be accountable for what we've dealt with. They left us in the lurch. We're going to take their property. We're going to put it back and do something with it as a community. Not hoard it, develop it.
Thank you. Ward number 2, Mr. Ron Hoffman. Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350 and the Applebee's on 350 and the IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
Right. Just to name a few, I believe the Sonic has been purchased. The other two are recently vacant within the last year. 350 is definitely something that needs more to be looked at more. It is kind of a main drag between Lee's Summit and into Kansas City. That just needs to be looked at more and how we can utilize that more. We have some team members that are with the city now that in this past year have done some good things. I think they may need a little help, and maybe we can improve on what they're doing. And if they find something that's working, then we can just build on that. But that's kind of the key, is the city actually reaching out and finding people to help us fill these vacancies and what we can do to help fill these vacancies, because there's a lot of buildings on 63rd Street and downtown they just littered all over the place. but I believe we have a good start on things, and I like where we're heading.
Thank you. Ms. Hayden, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's on 350, and the IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
Okay, I'm going to go along with what Rochester said too. We have a comprehensive plan that kind of addresses that, but we also need to focus on economic development and make it easier for businesses to get that come into Raytown to get licensing and up to code in Raytown. But even greater than that, as a small business owner, I think that it's important that the Raytown residents support the businesses once they get here. If we're going to Overland Park to eat or going to Lee Summit to eat at an IHOP at Lee Summit rather than supporting the Raytown businesses, I think that's part of the problem. If they're not making money here, they're not going to stay here. So it's important that once we get these businesses here, that Raytown supports it. And of course, we do get businesses from outside of Raytown, especially on that 350 corridor. But once we get businesses here, we need for Raytown to support Raytown.
Thank you. Ward 3, Mr. Ryan Myers. Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic building on 350, the Applebee's, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
So vacant commercial properties are a big challenge, but they're also a huge opportunity for our community. Like I've touched on throughout this forum, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser. I also teach a graduate level real estate valuation course at UMKC. I know what businesses look for, and it's location. I mean, they say it over and over again: location, 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 and then infrastructure and workforce. And that's something to touch on too, is jobs. We're not looking for just minimum wage jobs, but we need high paying jobs because that's one of the pillars of the real estate development cycle. And we need to actively market our available properties and work with brokers and developers to bring the right businesses. And we actually have businesses that are actively looking to move to Raytown and redevelop some of these properties. So it is in the process. It's just a little slower than we want. But we also need to keep in mind that there's other factors that play into the real estate cycle or the development cycle, and that's investment in infrastructure. Because if we can increase our infrastructure development, we can increase the curb appeal to our overall community.
Thank you. Mr. Malloy, Raytown has many vacant properties, many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic on 350, Applebee's, and IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
The first thing you have to do is make our city safe. Public safety has to be involved because we're not going to get people from Lee Summit, Independence, Kansas City coming to Raytown to visit our businesses unless they feel safe. We're not going to get our residents to stay in Raytown unless they feel safe. And the secondary issue is I've heard from 3 businesses that had some extreme difficulty in the economic development department. And I think they're doing a wonderful job at City Hall in that regard. But they had extreme difficulty with having too many restrictions or requirements put on what they wanted to do in order to move into a business. It's as if someone wanted them to repair our safe sidewalks instead of us repairing our sidewalks. And I haven't been able to research and to talk to them further, but I have to have 3 businesses contact me and say they had a problem and they went and moved elsewhere because of the requirements the city was putting on them is something we need to evaluate.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, Raytown has many vacant buildings such as the old Sonic on 350, Applebee's, and IHOP, to name a few. What ideas would you have to increase economic development and bring more jobs to Raytown?
I would definitely also refer to the comprehensive plan as well. Look at the design on that the current leaders have put in place, and also see what they have resolved. And once we can do that, I will continue with trying to find strategic incentives, of course, like we just all said, tax incentives, partner, collaborate with different business development organizations, and just pretty much just see what we can do to gain attraction for other businesses. I do agree with what Ms. Hayden said as far as community engagement with, you have to also support those businesses if you want to keep those businesses here, because that's how they're going to be able to sustain is through the community taking part in supporting those businesses.
Thank you. We've reached 8 o'clock. As we conclude our forum tonight, everybody's going to be given 90 seconds to give a closing statement and state why voters should vote for you on April the 8th. And we'll start with Ward number 4, Mr. Fritz. 90 seconds, sir.
Well, appreciate you for this opportunity. Thank the Women's League of Voters. They should vote for me because it's transparency, and I want the continuation of transparency in City Hall. Basically, I'm going to work diligently for public safety, helping out the elderly, and I already help out the children. So that's here nor there. And basically, I just want to make sure we get this stuff cleaned up, bring revenue into Raytown, and bring in some businesses and make it flourish, and make Raytown the suburb it used to be. Make people want to come. Make Raytown have people on a waiting list to get in. That's the aspiration that I have for Raytown, and this is why you should vote for me on April 8th.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bambrusic, can you tell us, as we conclude tonight's forum, give your closing statement and state why voters should vote for you on April the 8th?
Well, I would like to be able to continue in my role as an alderman in Ward 4. I think we've made great progress. We have limitations related to funding. We've addressed most of these issues that come up tonight have been things we've addressed, and often I have to wonder. I know some of the candidates tonight, I've seen them at some city council meetings. Some of them I've never seen at a city council meeting. And I wonder how well they understand our budget and how it's done. And the fact that you can't just take that big pool of money and use it anywhere, because some of those taxes are designated taxes. So you have limitations. And I would have to wonder how many know what our budget is for the city. I wish I could just ask that question of everyone now and get an answer, because I don't think certainly a few of you might be able to answer that, but I think most people that are participants in this probably wouldn't. But I think that's pretty important. I want to continue economic growth. That's to broaden our tax base. That's enabling us to achieve other goals, to effectively market the good business opportunities we have and the home values we have in our community, to continue cleaning up our city, to maintain and improve our infrastructure, including street lights, bridges, sidewalks, curbs, as we've been doing.
Mr. Morales, can you give us your closing statement on why voters should vote for you on April the 8th?
Well, I would echo Bill and say that most people probably don't understand that we have some financial limitations, but I rarely hear anybody talking about how we can solve that issue. I look around and I see that we have a lot of people in this town that I would call the leaders of this town that are engaged in the various organizations like the Chamber, the Main Street, and some of them are on this call right here, but many are not. And so I'm always curious why people step up when we're not already engaged. I mean, some of us are already doing the things that we're trying to do. Some of us were a part of developing the long range plan. Some of us are a part of the organizations that are trying to bring the funding from external sources. When I look at this town, I see a lot of people reflect on the past, and we have changed demographically. We have changed in our culture of this town, but we have not redefined what we are and who we are and the vision. When I was an executive director in nonprofit, I would ask volunteers to talk about what they believe. And I believe, I've started a business in this town. I've lived here for 22 years, and I believe this town has potential. With that long range plan that we've worked hard to develop, we now have a goal and we now have a vision. And I am working with the groups to develop a plan for how we're going to fund that, which has not been discussed in the past. So
Thank you. So that concludes Ward 4. Ward 3, we will go with Ms. Thomas first. Can you tell us why voters should vote for you on April the 8th?
I have to totally agree with Josh pretty much on everything. I definitely will also have to add in that Raytown does have a lot of potential. I want to see us revitalize, you know, get some results and do what we need to do to get. I don't think that we should continue with all the complaining. Let's take action. And as you said, obviously there's a lot more people that are standing up because we do feel like that there needs to be some change, some necessary change. So I definitely want to step in place to be able to create change, to be a leader that ultimately listens. You know, we are very aware that we have a ton of issues. We've already stated that here. And so we do need to get the results. We do need to pretty much not live as we used to live in the old Raytown. Things have changed, and we do need to come up to par with the change. And so I say vote for me.
Thank you. Mr. Malloy, can you tell the listeners and voters why they should vote for you on April the 8th, sir?
I can tell you why. It's because I've been involved with this city council for over 2.5, 3 years, trying to effectuate change. Change that I felt that was reflective of what people were telling me, and we kept getting shut down. And so to say we're going to follow the comprehensive plan that's under review, we didn't follow it 2.5 years ago, even though it's a 20-year-old, 30-year-old document. So people speak with forked tongues, and the problem is our residents want change. They're demanding change, and it starts with the alderman, and then it moves to the mayor, and then it moves to all the city employees. And I think we have some great employees. I'm not criticizing them, and when I've never stood up and said someone at City Hall did a bad job. But what I've said is our process isn't working. It's not effectuating the change that the residents want and are demanding from those of us that are elected officials. And I'll make sure it gets done.
Thank you. So, Mr. Myers, can you tell us, the attendees and residents, why they should vote for you on April the 8th?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with the community tonight. Raytown's at a critical point. We can either continue our progress or risk losing momentum. As an expert in real estate, I analyze and evaluate communities like ours every day, and I know that investment in safety, infrastructure, and economic development is key to property values, keeping property values strong and attracting new businesses. I'm honored to have the support of organizations that represent working families, economic development, and inclusivity. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Greater Kansas City AFL-CIO, the Greater Kansas City Building and Construction Trades Council, Roofers Local 20, and one national level advocate for equality and inclusive leadership that I can't share until tomorrow, so stay tuned. These endorsements reflect the trust that labor, business, and community advocates have in my leadership. They recognize that I will continue working to grow our economy, invest in our infrastructure, and ensure that Raytown remains a great place to live, work, and do business for everyone. My record shows that I am committed to responsible governance, and I'm ready to keep pushing Raytown forward. Representation matters, and as the youngest and first openly gay alderman in the history of Raytown, I ask you to vote for continue leading Ward 3 with experience, dedication, and a clear vision for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hayden, can you tell us why people should vote for you on April the 8th?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and our moderator, Mr. Jackson, for this opportunity. I think the main thing is that I love Raytown. I am a current alderman in Ward 2, and the reason that I ran is because I just saw a need for some diversity of thought, diversity on our Board of Aldermen. I am seeking re-election because I believe that we have some momentum. We want to continue to look for various revenue streams to prepare and correct our crumbling infrastructure. Not only do I show up at Board of Aldermen meetings, even before I became a Board of Alderman, I attend community events. I'm a part of the community. I'm a part of Raytown Education Foundation, the Citizens Advisory Board for Raytown Schools. But because I have a small business here in Raytown, I'm also pro-chamber. I think the chamber does a lot, and I am very active with the Raytown Chamber of Commerce. It's important to me that I'm available to my constituents. So I give my constituents my personal phone number so that they can call me anytime. They have an email. So I'm available, and I do return phone calls, and I do return emails, and I do address their concerns. I've been a part of a Raytown for a long time. I raised my kids here in Raytown. So I love Raytown. I live in Raytown. I work in Raytown, and I play in Raytown. That's the reason why I'm seeking re-election.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman.
Yes,
As we conclude
thanks.
tonight's forum, can you give our listeners closing statement
Yes.
and why they should vote for you on April 8th?
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting this. Appreciate the time. There's a couple things that were mentioned that I really enjoyed. To Laretha, I live in Raytown, I work in Raytown, I play in Raytown. That's good. And I've lived here for almost 30 years now. I've sent 4 of my kids. I have 6 kids. 4 of them have graduated through the Raytown schools. I'm heavily involved. I attend most of the board meetings, all of them that I can. Most of the board members there know me by name already. I've seen a lot in the past that I don't want Raytown to repeat. And I see some of the conflict on the board right now, which is kind of concerning to me as I attend these meetings. And I'm just looking to be a voice of the people. There's a lot of that don't seem to think that they're being heard these days. And that's kind of what that has been part of why I got involved in the first place, is I saw this gap between residents and the board, and there just seems like people weren't communicating with each other. And I want to kind of just try and fill that gap. So hopefully we can do that and go from there. That's why I would like to be a part of the board.
Thank you. Ms. Tush, can you tell our listeners tonight as we conclude why they should vote for you on April the 8th?
Because my motto is time for change, time that somebody actually listens and listens to both pros and cons. I am for supporting public safety, both the public maintenance, the public works, the police. I want to be a citizen advocate for seniors and the family-friendly communities, and trying to support transparency on the city for everybody that can help our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping me go through all the problems that I had on the Zoom.
Mr. Conway, as we close out, can you tell our listeners and residents of Raytown why they should vote for you on April the 8th?
Mr. Conway has left.
Okay, Mr. Conway. Mr. Rochester, as we close out our forum tonight, can you tell us why people should vote for you on April the 8th?
First, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this forum for us tonight. And thank you, Joe, for hosting this for us tonight. I believe I'm the voice for Ward 1. I believe going into this election on April 8th, we will be voiceless in Ward 1. So I want to change that to be the voice that we need for Ward 1 and for all of Raytown. I'm a former business owner here in Raytown. I'm involved heavily in this community in Raytown. And so I believe that I'm the right person for this seat on April 8th. And I ask for your support on April 8th. Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for all attending. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for giving me this opportunity. And I will turn it back over to our co-chair.
Good evening. Thank you all candidates for being here. This forum was sponsored by the League of Women Voters and the Raytown Area Chamber of Commerce. The forum was recorded and is available on the League's webpage, lwvkc.org, and on YouTube, so you can tell your mother-in-law to watch you. The League of Women Voters is a grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard our democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or positions, we are directly involved with sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. The volunteers that helped put on this are Cindy Schmidt, who was our timer, and Laura Mountjoy, who was our tech host person. Thank you for your interest in the April 8th election. Please take a moment to share this forum with your friends and neighbors and other social media outlets. And remember, for voting and candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.